harder it is to solve. And this case is not cold, it's frozen. We need to figure out what happened to Laverne and get her family answers. I just hope it's not too late.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
There are so many cold cases out there just waiting to be solved.
The crime scene ultimately tells the story of the murder.
We want to bring justice to these victims. Let's go, sunshine.
Let's do it.
Hey!
How you doing? I'm Sergeant Phil Lakin.
Nice to meet
Nice
you.
to meet you, Yolanda. Kelly, Sergeant Phil Lakin.
Hi, I'm George Logan.
Nice to meet you.
I've been a cop for 30 years. I put 110% into all of my cases as if I was dealing with my own family as victims. I've always treated everybody right.
How many of you guys work here?
In our department, we have 500 total sworn count in detention.
Well, that's big.
Yeah.
And how about cold cases?
Cold cases, we have Randy and George. They're our cold case guys right there.
We're dealing with a 33-year-old investigation with a missing person. When you deal with the family of the victims, it's very tough.
Okay, show us our room.
Thank you. Let's go.
Well, Mr. Steve.
Hey, how's it going?
We've asked Steve Spingola to join us this week because we don't have a lot of witnesses here. So the few that we do have, we're going to need all of his help on. How'd y'all get that picture, guys? That's a nice picture.
Our daughter Kelly had some wedding pictures.
Does Kelly look like her? Can you tell?
Yes, she does.
Who wants to start with telling us about Laverne?
Well, Laverne had 2 children, Kelly and Brian. She's a devout church woman. She had gotten divorced from her ex-husband, Larry Wallace, who's since deceased. And she was attending Curlew Baptist Church, where she had gone for many years. It was a prison ministry coming in every week for church. Well, she meets Merle Mackey in there, thinks he's a nice guy. Within a few weeks, they're married.
Is he good looking? Was he good looking?
And one of his ex-wives said he's quite charming, knows how to show a girl a good time, so.
Okay. When Laverne met Merle, he'd been in trouble with law enforcement because of numerous white-collar crimes, including larceny, theft, and forging checks. But despite his past, Laverne still saw the good in him and married him after he was released from prison. George, can you tell us about the day that she went missing?
November 5th, 1981. Kelly got up that morning to go to school. About 3 p.m. that day, Merle shows up at school to pick her up. She asks about Mom, and Merle says, hey, listen, your uncle up in Indiana, your Uncle Kenny, his wife is sick or family's sick, so Mom flew up to go take care of family. Next couple of days, she calls up her Uncle Kenny up in Indiana, and Kenny tells her, I haven't spoken to your mother in like a month. There's no one sick here. What are you talking about? So then Kelly goes and confronts Merle. So Merle tells him, listen, I don't want to tell you, but your mother ran off with another man. You can either stay with me or go back and live with your biological father.
It's suspicious that Merle lied to Kelly about where her mother went. But if Laverne did just pack up and run away from her family, that's difficult news to deliver to a 13-year-old girl. And Merle was an ex-con, so his first instinct might have been to make up a story without considering the repercussions.
Okay, so let's start off with missing question mark, okay? First obvious one is no body found. What else can y'all think of?
You know he's a con man. You want out.
If Laverne found out that Merle was committing crimes again, she may not have wanted anything to do with him and probably would have been embarrassed that she began to trust him again.
She ran off with another man, found another man.
Well, she did marry him kind of fast, so maybe she met somebody else.
How about suicide? She runs away and kills herself.
There are plenty of reasons that Laverne might have run away, and we're going to need to address every possibility. But if she was murdered, there is only one suspect in any of our minds. So this is our picture of Merle, huh? He looks like an intelligent guy. What do y'all want to start with?
Last person to see her.
And the only one to see her when he's confronted.
Every single thing Merle has done in his whole life and in his prior criminal history is motivated by money.
There is something to go back on that day, Kelly, the bank accounts. Immediately after Laverne disappeared, there was a series of withdrawals from her checking account. which both she and Merle had access to.
If you look at their bank accounts, I think they did have a large sum of money in there.
But there's no way to tell which one of them withdrew the funds. Of course, it can go that she did it because she's running, but it also could be because he's murdered her and he wants to get that money out of that account. Was Laverne getting money out to help her leave town? Or did Merle kill her and waste no time cashing in on her death?
So we know we're dealing with a 33-year-old case. The other thing is trying to see if we can get enough evidence or witnesses to shore up premeditation. With a case this cold, the statute of limitations has run out for second-degree murder, which is deliberate. So if Laverne was killed, we're going to need to prove that it was first-degree murder, which requires premeditation. We have to focus on premeditation here to even get to where we need to be. That's a huge hurdle in an already difficult case. Of course, if she simply ran away, then there's no crime. It's just a very sad story. Either way, her family needs answers. I can't even imagine what it would be like to be Laverne's daughter and have your mom just one day disappear. Probably the only thing worse would be to never know why.
How cute is that?
Hey, Kelly. How you doing, huh?
Good, how are you?
Good. Good to see you.
Hi, Kelly. Yolanda.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Kelly also.
Hi, Kelly.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We're excited to be here.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Walk us through that day.
To be honest, the only thing about that day that stands out to me was that Merle picked me up at school.
Which had never happened before.
No. And I remember his exact words were, well, I just took your mom and put her on the big bird. And I was like, what? And he said, I took her to the airport. He said that my uncle was sick in Indiana and that she had to go up and help take care of him. Now, of course, being older and wiser, red flags would go off. It's like, okay, we don't have a phone. How did anybody call her and tell her?
Why didn't y'all have a phone?
I don't know.
I lived in a little town, too, in 1981. We all had phones.
Yeah.
Did there come a time or a day where you kind of reconciled yourself to the idea that your mom wasn't ever coming back?
Yeah, and I think that happened a long time ago.
When?
I would say probably in my early 20s.
How do you deal with that? You know, your mom left when you were so young, and you want to think what?
It's more what ifs. I have a son who never knew his grandma.
How about Brian?
He's handled it a little differently. I think very... I don't know, honestly, how to describe. He's just very cold to it.
So at that time, he was 19?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and he wasn't living at home then. It was like the day he turned 18, Merle kicked him out of the house.
According to Merle, Brian was stealing money, and that was the driving force behind getting rid of Brian because he was a thief.
No, not at all.
We knew Merle was a con. But it's sad to think that he may have conned Laverne into kicking her son Brian out of their house. But the real question is why?
Well, we're going to start working, start talking to everybody that George can think of, and you know, the minute he can tell you something, he'll be ringing your phone.
I'll be waiting.
All right, give us a good luck hug.
Absolutely.
Oh, hopefully we'll have something.
Oh, I hope so. It's been 33 years of not knowing what happened to my mom. So to have all of this happening now is giving me hope. To have closure would be wonderful.
We're in Hernando County, Florida, investigating the mysterious 1981 disappearance of Laverne Mackey. We believe she was either killed by her husband, Merle, or she possibly ran away.
These are the kind of cases that get me worked up. It's a lady living in a small town who is raising her children by herself.
Right.
And a new man comes into their world, which does not happen very often when you live in a small town. That's what happened with my mom. And they marry him because they want a man and they want a family. Even though the guys are losers and jerks, they stick with them. My mom married my stepdad in a small town, and he might not have been an ex-con, but he was worthless, just like Merle. Of course, just because Merle was an ex-con doesn't mean he's a killer. which is why the first thing that our team has to investigate is whether or not Laverne really did just run away.
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you fine.
Okay, wonderful.
We wanted to talk to you and see what information you had that you could help us out.
Okay, I hope I can help.
When Laverne Mackey went missing in 1981, Merle gives custody of Kelly to her biological father and his wife, Garland. Kelly's biological father has passed away since 1981 when this incident occurred, and if Laverne did run away, Garland may be able to help us in establishing why that occurred.
We went, Larry and I, to the house. So we packed Kelly's things, and Merle was there. It didn't look like anything had been moved or packed. You know how a woman, when she goes away, especially if it's for a while, she takes all of her cosmetics, and that wasn't the case. Did not look that anybody had packed to go anywhere.
You'd have thought if Laverne would have run away, she'd have taken her cosmetics and other essential items, but she didn't. Laverne either left in a hurry or she didn't run away at all.
Hello?
Hi, can I speak with William Estes, please?
This is he?
Mr. Estes, my name is George Loigren. I'm a detective in the Hernando County Sheriff's Office.
Yes.
We're having an investigation on a missing person case involving Laverne Mackey.
Laverne was a very religious lady. She was active in her church and really close to her pastor. There was even a rumor she wanted to become a missionary. If Laverne ever confided that she was thinking about leaving town for any reason, her pastor might know.
What can you tell me about her as a person?
She was pretty regular coming in attendance.
Did she appear to be a caring, loving mother to her children? Was she a responsible person?
Yeah, she seemed to be pretty much interested in the family.
Was there any issues with her mentally? Was she depressed or had any problems with maybe suicide or thoughts of that?
Not that I ever heard.
Did she ever mention to you anything about maybe wanting to be a missionary and leave her children and go off to...
No, I never heard that.
Well, all right, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
And that is a proper Southern gentleman.
Don't most men in the South send their wives and their kids to church and they stay home?
Watch football.
I don't know, I'm from the North.
I'm Kelly. Nice to meet
I'm
you.
Muriel Touchton.
Muriel Touchton has known Laverne since they were little girls together, so she knew Laverne way before Laverne ever met Merle. Hopefully she can tell us about their relationship and, more importantly, whether or not Laverne ever wanted out.
Where did you know Laverne from?
I've known Laverne ever since we was in 7th, 8th grade, something like that.
Did she seem like the type of person that would just up and leave or just walk away
No
without
way.
giving her kids notice?
There is no way she would leave her kids without, no.
Okay. Prior to her marrying Mackey, you would get together with her how often? Weekly, daily?
At least weekly, sometimes during the week. But
Once she married Merle, did that stop?
That sure did.
Huh? Did you ever talk to her about that? I mean, was that him or?
That was him.
That was him?
Didn't want nobody to talk to her, to be honest with you.
According to Muriel, Merle kept Laverne from her friends, and we know that he kicked her son Brian out of the house under the false pretenses that Brian was stealing. It sounds like Merle was trying to isolate Laverne from every single person that cared for her.
Do you remember having a confrontation with Merle at church?
Yes, I do.
Let me read what you said back then. It says, well, Merle confronted me at church,
Yeah.
and he told me to keep my big mouth shut
that's
because I had asked where Laverne was.
That's right.
And he literally told me that it was none of my business. Laverne was fine. All I was doing was asking where she was at.
That's right.
But he wasn't talking to you in a nice, calm way, was he?
No, he wasn't.
How was he talking to you?
He was mad. Let's just put it like that.
And all you were doing was trying to find out what happened to your friend.
That's right.
So why would he be so mad about that?
Because I think he had something to do with it.
Okay, y'all, let's see where we are now. According to witnesses, Laverne never packed any personal items before she disappeared. She wasn't depressed, and she showed no signs of wanting to run away. Laverne would have never left her children, and she would have never left Kelly with a man like Merle. It is clear that this is no longer a missing persons case. This is a murder.
I think what happened with this particular case was Merle, when the investigator showed up and started questioning him, he did such a good job of selling the fact that she ran off with somebody else. They actually took that as fact, I believe. And it wasn't until he started telling different stories did they sense something was up.
Merle gave various excuses to the police for Laverne's disappearance. Well, didn't it change from left to help her brother to left to help his sick children?
To help with the kids because she was sick.
Right, the mother was sick.
That's good because he's changing the whole reason why she's leaving, including she was taking care of a sick relative, that she had ran off with another man, and that she was going off on a missionary trip.
The one thing that is consistent over 30 years is Merle has given inconsistent statements to everybody. He lies every time he opens his mouth.
And now, with all that we've learned, plus Merle's inconsistent stories, we have strong circumstantial evidence to prove that he killed Laverne. What about the two detectives that got all those great statements out of Merle?
They're both deceased. Captain Batten is deceased, and John Jordan is deceased.
Suspect statements are only admissible in court if the police officers are alive to be cross-examined.
Oh, shit.
We have been relying on that testimony, and now that they've passed away, so is a huge piece of evidence in this case. You know, the problem with all this is that it was already going to be hard because it's 33 years old. That's one of the oldest cases any of us have ever worked on. And then when you throw in there that your law requires premeditation to get past the statute of limitations, it makes it pretty difficult. Now we're going to have Merle himself to prove up those old inconsistencies in order to establish that he's the one who killed Laverne. On top of that, we're still going to have to prove premeditated first-degree murder to get past the statute of limitations. I honestly don't know how we're going to close this case.
We're in Hernando County, Florida, trying to prove Merle Mackey murdered his wife, Laverne. So we're headed to the last place anyone saw her alive, a remote trailer they moved to shortly before she went missing.
Why remove her somewhere else? Put her there where you won't be caught with a body. But that's a lot of land to cover.
Yeah, it's a proverbial needle in the haystack.
Police have already searched the property for Laverne's body, but came up empty. Today we want to check out the trailer itself. If it's our crime scene, we want to test for any traces of Laverne's blood. After 33 years, it's a long shot that we'll find anything, but we need to be thorough. Otherwise, at trial, a defense team could argue we didn't investigate every possibility.
Current owner bought it in '89.
Yes.
And has had it all these years.
He lived in what's left of this mobile home, and then it became inhabited by raccoons. And
So they're not happy either.
No.
Because you took away their home right now.
Yeah, they're probably not too happy right now.
Morning.
Director Tim Whitfield, Yolanda McClary.
Very
Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you.
So our hope is to look underneath the original flooring, because we know that there's a possibility that he cleaned up.
We have 3 layers of flooring. We have 2 layers of the sticky back tile and then 1 layer of linoleum. We're going to examine each layer to see if there's any evidence that blood may have been there, whether it been cleaned up or not.
Okay.
Looks like I'll have the easy side.
That one is stuck far worse under the cabinet here. They had to dig a little bit.
I got a 2-for-1 here.
If we find one trace of Laverne's blood, it easily could be explained as coming from a cut she got in the kitchen or the bathroom. But many blood hits in several places might suggest this is where her murder occurred.
Do you want us to start bringing these out? Because this section's done.
This is from the kitchen area.
Watching the team swab these tiles for blood is like watching a lottery drawing. Except for you don't want a number, you want that little swab to turn pink. But so far, it's not looking too good.
Hey, Tim. George, too. There's a little bit of blood right by the sink on the ground, on top of the tile.
By the sink, right?
By the sink.
All right, excellent.
All right. All of a sudden, pink. Which means there's blood by the sink in the kitchen.
Have you been getting any other hits, Angelique?
That one has blood on it. This one.
In all, we got 25 positive hits for blood from the kitchen and the bathroom. Of course, these tests are presumptive, and we don't know whose blood it is. So we're going to send the swabs to the lab for definitive results.
We're only going to go 1 mile. We're going to take the exit towards Sunset Point Road.
What did we ever do before smart
I don't know.
If we're ever going to get to a first-degree murder conviction, we have to prove premeditation. For that, we have to show that Merle had a conscious intent to kill and took steps prior to Laverne's murder to plan it or get away with it.
Mr. Truelock, I wanted to pick your brain and kind of go back all the way as far as you can remember and just kind of give me an idea how this all unfolded with you.
Charles Truelock is Laverne's brother, and he's the one that gave her financial advice when she married Merle. We know that Merle had access to Laverne's checking account, but what we need to learn is if he made any other arrangements regarding her finances prior to her murder.
I was out of the country. I got back home, they'd suddenly married. It seemed like a rush deal.
I got you. How long were you out of the country?
I was only out 10 days.
Oh, so it was a rush deal.
Yeah, it was a rush deal. But so one day, she said, Merle wants me to change the deed on this house from just my name to him and I. One of the stories that he had come up with, he said, you know, I'm sick. I have a cancer condition, and I'm not going to live a long time. And if we change this around, we'll have insurance. When I die, you'll have this house, and it'll be paid for. I said, Laverne, I said, you change it, and then you don't like the situation. I said, you can't change it back.
Merle convinced Laverne to add him to the deed on her house by saying when he died of his terminal cancer, his life insurance would pay off her house. But instead, Laverne disappears, and Merle got all of the money from the sale of the house she owned from her first marriage, along with all of the money in her bank account. And Merle never had cancer. It was all a lie to get to her money. That sure as heck sounds like planning to me.
Then they sold their home, took her up to your way there and sequestered her away. Didn't have a telephone up there. He wouldn't have a telephone put in. Eventually, he said, well, she left.
Are you telling me from the time they moved up to Hernando County, you never heard from her again?
No, I did not. There was no doubt in my mind that he either directly or indirectly caused my sister to be killed. I might mention to you that it caused me, on a personal level, a great deal of heartache. I had lots of restless nights.
It's clear that Merle physically isolated Laverne from all of her friends by getting her to move to a remote trailer and wouldn't even let her have access to a telephone. He manipulated his way into her finances and removed any and all threats to his control by kicking her own son Brian out of their house. All of those were steps that he took before her murder. But we're gonna need more. We need to track down all the women in Merle's past. We need to establish that he has a pattern of domestic abuse. Then what he did to Laverne wasn't unique, it was his MO. And that could help us prove premeditation.
As y'all go start talking to all these witnesses, every time you talk to one, you're not just trying to see what they remember, if they know about the act of the murder, or Merle make an admission. We're looking for little bitty pieces that get us to premeditation. And every woman you can find who says he did the same kind of thing to her shows that pattern of how he gets them off to themselves.
All right, great. Bye.
Bye.
We just got the results back from the lab on the blood samples we collected from Laverne and Merle's trailer where we think she was killed. Now it's time to tell Kelly and Detective Williamson the news.
Detective Williamson.
Okay, I've just got some results back from the lab. All the tiles that came back with a positive for blood with the presumptives done at the scene. They went to the lab and came up negative for Laverne's blood. It's not her, and it's not going to help us, guys.
Okay.
It was always a long shot, but now we know for sure there's no physical evidence to support that Laverne was killed in that trailer.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
We've always known that this case wasn't going to be solved by forensics. Right now, we need to focus on proving premeditation. For that, we need to find evidence that Merle had a pattern of abusing women, financially and emotionally.
Lori remembers Merle Mackey. She can shed a little light on what kind of guy Merle was.
Merle's next wife after Laverne was Eloise. However, she passed away over a decade ago.
Well, this is Yolanda. She's helping us out when we're all working together in the investigation.
Eloise had a daughter, and she may be able to tell us if Merle attempted to manipulate her just as Merle did with Laverne.
My dad saw him and he didn't like him.
Really? Why?
I mean, he never had a job. My mom worked, but he didn't.
In the short time that you were around Merle, and when your mom was with him, did he seem to be a controlling person?
She had to ask him if she could go places. She'd say, do you mind if I go with Lori to the store? You know, like she was asking.
Was she like that with your father?
No.
Do you know any of your mother's friends at the time?
I know it's going to sound... She didn't have many friends, you know what I'm saying? They never had people, you know, like you would go out with a group of friends. They never did that.
Okay.
They were, like, always together by themselves.
Merle continued to try to control women and make money the easy way. Eloise's story helps build our case, but we still need more. Virginia Whitehead is another one of Merle's ex-wives. She was smart enough to leave him. And we need to find out what drove her to do so.
How long were you married to Merle for?
Just barely over a year.
And why did you guys get divorced or separated?
Because he was a sorry, no good something.
Okay. Was it true you had researched some of the property you owned? Didn't you own?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he'd been to the courthouse and all that and had papers, you know, and all of that stuff. He was just so sneaky.
Without her consent or knowledge, Virginia found out that Merle was attempting to get his name placed onto her property titles and deeds. And this is a trick that Merle did with Laverne and was successful in doing it.
Did he also want to be put on your checking account? Or have a checking account with you? Or?
He wanted to, and he opened a checking account in mine and his name, but I never did do nothing with his checking account, and I never would put him on mine.
Did he ever talk to you anything about life insurance or anything?
One time he brought it up and wanted to take an insurance policy out on me and wanted me to take one out on him. I had insurance, and I had it made out to my kids, and I said, no, I don't need it.
Was Merle a controlling kind of guy?
He'd get kind of nasty every now and then, you know, whenever I'd be late from work or if I was, you know, like spend too much time with the kids. And he'd done a lot of things to my kids, especially my son. And I said I wasn't going to have that. He just didn't like Jeff being at the house.
Merle tried to isolate Virginia from her children, especially her son, just as he did with Laverne, and was subsequently able to get Laverne's son, Brian, kicked out of the house.
How about if you had any friends come over or anything to the house?
Oh, it got so the friends wouldn't even come.
In examining the fact pattern of Merle's life here, he clearly marries these women, isolates them, financially drains them, which is a pattern we've seen before.
You knew Laverne, didn't you, from church?
Yeah.
And how long
I
you
knew
know?
her before I met him.
What did Merle tell you happened to Laverne?
He just said she went to see her brother in, and I don't know where, somewhere's up north, and she never come back, is what he told me.
He was quite the crafty character, huh?
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. And I apologized to my kids more and more times what I put them through when I was with him.
What do you think happened to Laverne?
I think he done away with her.
So let's just focus on what we do have up here. With Merle's similar manipulation and isolation tactics that he used on other women, we can make a strong argument for premeditation, which would get you to first-degree murder. The case is looking good, but to move it forward, we still need that key piece of evidence back. Merle's old inconsistencies about what he says happened to Laverne. And there's only one person left we can get them from, and that's Merle. It's time to track him down. So you already met the people from the Henderson County Sheriff's Office, huh, Phil?
I did. They were real gracious.
Let's go head over to Merle's house, you think?
Absolutely.
We tracked down our suspect, Merle Mackey, to a small town in Texas. Local authorities tell us that he's been making a living pretending to be a wounded warrior veteran at gun shows, scamming people out of donations.
Well, I certainly didn't expect it to be this cold here.
No, for you, it's got to be a real culture shock.
Oh, this is culture shock.
Hey, Steve.
Steve, good to see you. Good morning.
What y'all's planned? What you thinking?
I want to close this case. And before we can close it, since he was the last person that saw her alive, what we have is some old transcripts of him. I need to go through those with him.
I like that. I
just need to go through with them and get a video recording of you walking through these, and then we're going to be able to close this case, Merle, which he will be happy. Once he's agreed that's all true, he said all of that stuff, then I'm going to start pointing out the inconsistencies of his interviews, and then we're going to start working him.
That's all gravy
Wait a minute,
after
Mom.
that. Whatever
And
y'all
then
get
go
him to
that
say
way.
after you get him to agree to the transcripts, I'm happy with.
Yes.
But we got to get him to agree to those transcripts.
That's enough.
All right.
That's
Well,
the
good
plan.
luck.
All right.
Be nice to just finish it off, and obviously I'm living in a perfect world right this moment in my brain that not only we have him and he brings us to our body and we have...
Well, you are an optimistic fella there, George.
Well, I'm hoping for the best, you know. After 30 years of busting my ass, I think I'm owed some breaks here or there, and I call in my markers, especially in important cases like this where the loss of somebody's life and a whole family hurting and not having their mother and their sister and grandchildren have their grandmother around because this selfish son of a bitch took her away from her family.
There's more people out here than I thought there'd be.
Yeah.
We may only get one shot at this. When the police are looking for a suspect, word travels fast. And Merle has fled the police in the past. This one right here at the van?
It looks like the carport's empty. There's a van there, but it looks like there's a car gone.
A van, but no car.
It's locked up tight. That's quite a lock on that front door.
Holy mama.
I've never seen one done like that.
Think this guy's a little paranoid? Michael Jackson syndrome or what?
He's the kind of guy that would lock it up tight just to go to town.
Maybe he's getting his Geritol or something, huh?
There's a guy checking us out.
And I hope this guy doesn't know Merle.
So they think he could be playing slots. He could be drinking coffee at the Dairy Queen. He could be doing something like that on a Friday morning. Let's just hope he didn't go to Dallas for a gun show.
Since Merle's been scamming people at gun shows, we're thinking that's where he might be.
Those witnesses would know about all the gun shows in the area.
There's a lot of gun shows back home in Texas, and finding him at one of those is going to be really hard. There are a couple of wounded warrior veterans who live nearby that have caught Merle scamming in the past.
Hey, Jimmy. Hey, Sergeant Phil Lakin.
George Loigren, how are you, sir? Nice to meet you.
They might know which one he's trying to hit up today.
You want to see a picture of the car he's driving? I'd love to see a picture of the car he's driving. Yes, sir. He always goes to these gun shows put on by this guy in Oklahoma.
You have a copy of like the upcoming gun shows?
Yeah, let me make a copy.
Excellent.
There's one in Canton.
When is that one? Is that going on this weekend?
It's going on this week.
Really?
Be here.
How far away is Canton?
It's like a half hour, right, sir?
There's a gun show in Canton, Texas, about 40 miles away.
He's probably got a handicap spot up front. You can't see him walking anywhere when he's in the pull his disabled bullshit.
Kelly, Phil, Randy, and I are going to keep eyes on Merle's trailer, while Steve and George head to the show to try to locate Merle.
We've heard that Merle rides an electric scooter and tries to pass himself off as a disabled vet. I came up with the term of scooter scammer, and so we'll be on the lookout for Merle. George, I think that's him over there. So we see this old man on a scooter, and suddenly he takes off on us. And here I am chasing a 70-year-old guy on a scooter that I can't catch because he's got a battery that can outrun me. Elderly guy, probably hard of hearing. Me, an old guy, hard of running, and I couldn't catch up to him, so it was kind of embarrassing. I've chased a lot of suspects on foot in patrol cars.
Steve.
The chase down an old man in a scooter is a first for me.
Is that him?
Hey, sir, your name isn't Merle, is it? No? You know a guy named Merle? Mackie. Yeah? Thanks a lot.
So Merle's not at the gun show.
That was fun.
Oh, yeah.
And the next day, we checked different locations in town, and again, no sign of him.
No, he's still not here.
It's still locked up.
Yep.
And the following day, we can't find him either, no matter how hard we look. It's been 3 days, and so far, there's no sign of Merle anywhere. He either got word that we were looking for him and slithered out of town, or he's very lucky right now.
Well, Steve, I'd like to say it's been real fun working with you, but unfortunately, all I can say is it's been real fun hanging out.
You lie. Wouldn't be the first lie. So this has been a bust so far. We haven't been able to find Merle anywhere in Texas. Right now, we need the Henderson County Sheriff's Department to keep eyes on Merle's home while we head back to Florida, and hopefully they'll locate him, and they'll be able to let us know if and when he returns.
We did everything we could on this case, and it breaks my heart because now we got to go see Kelly, and we just haven't gotten there yet because we can't find Merle.
Hey, Kelly.
Hi. Kelly. Hi. It's good to see you. You too.
Thank you for meeting us so early.
You're welcome.
Well, we've been busy.
Yeah, after we saw you, we interviewed a lot of people here, local. Unfortunately, we didn't get a hold of Merle.
Without an interview from Merle, we are missing a huge piece of this case before we can present it to the state's attorney. So right now, this case is in limbo until we can find Merle.
And I also want you to know that I'm talking to you feeling like I'm talking to myself. Because what happened to you could have happened to me with my situation growing up with my stepdad. Back in 1981, when someone committed a murder that was an intentional murder as opposed to a premeditated murder, the statute of limitations is either 3 or 4 years. The case with premeditation is difficult. They're going to keep working this angle, but it's a really, really hard thing to expect to happen.
I appreciate all of their passion that they have put into this. It's, you know, there's always hope. There's always hope.
It was wonderful to meet you.
Well,
I wish we could give you better
all you've done.
Better news. It's like, well,
I hope that someday Kelly and Brian do get the justice that they deserve.
I'll be talking to you soon, okay?
And if that day never comes, I hope that Kelly can at least take comfort in the fact that she did all that she could and that her mother would have never left her.
All right, Kelly.
Bye.
It's been a few weeks since we left Florida and we're on another case. But I hear that the Henderson County Sheriff's Department in Texas located Merle. So George and Randy flew to Texas to talk to him.
Randy, what happened? This is Kelly.
We ended up grabbing him. We took him down to the Mount Pleasant Police Department. We put him in an interview room. The first 5.5 hours was just walking him through the interview. He said, yeah, I remember this, I remember that. Then I'd have him elaborate on each one of them and walk him all through everything that you find lining out all the way through the interviews.
Great.
He admitted to all. He admitted to it all. And I basically told him the gig was up. He said, how do you know I killed her if you don't have a body? And he would never confess to murder. And I told him, I don't want you to confess. I just want to know where her body is. And he finally drops his shoulders and goes, all right, I'll tell you. It bothered me for 33 years. And he goes on to tell me how he took her fishing that day. He fell on the dock, hit the side of her head, fell over in the water. He reached down and got her out, and her head was pumping real hard. He didn't get her out. He just turned her over, and her mouth was full of water, and she wasn't breathing. He went ahead and tied a rope around her and an anchor and pushed her up onto the dock.
Wow.
Yes.
That's fantastic, because, you know, we were kind of not optimistic about the case, so y'all did it, guys. Way to go.
You now have Merle acknowledging that before his very eyes, Laverne is dying, which he's never said before. When a suspect makes an admission this late in the game, on top of all those other lies, it just makes you go, oh, wow. what an idiot, and thank you, because it's wonderful for the case.